here's Brody Brazil.
Well, as I record this, we still don't know what the A's actual renderings look like for a ballpark in Las Vegas. We also don't know when exactly they are supposed to come out. So when they eventually do appear right around the corner, I want to give you a heads up on what to look for in terms of these renderings, some specifics to pay attention to, and what they might actually mean for the project moving forward. Now, this is such a highly anticipated release for a couple different reasons. The big one, though, is simply timing. It's been delayed and kind of pushed back. And we, again, still don't even know right now when they'll actually come out or what they will reveal. Initially, midsummer, the A's said that they would have a 75% concept design by late October. They would also come out with a designer and an architect at that same instance. Now, the 75% concept design would give you a lot more of a realistic rendition. And again, renderings, why are they important? They're just conceptual by nature. But in this case, they spell out the buildability, the cost, and how exactly this would go on a 9-acre piece of land that's part of a bigger 35-acre site that a lot of people have questions about. So that was midsummer. It came around to be late November that this would be released, not October anymore. And then November 30th, the team made an announcement that in the coming week, early next week, it was the first week of December, it was the same week as winter meetings in Nashville, that they would be putting out these renderings in a big release, kind of a celebration on the campus of UNLV. Well, the next day at 5 p.m. on a Friday, the A's officially postponed that. We didn't hear much from them since then until now. I say now, but in recent weeks, the A's came out and John Fisher, the owner, said that they were waiting on Bally's to come out with their own rendering so that they could do more of a comprehensive depiction of the entire site. Not just the ballpark, which they say they had done, and to some degree of either accuracy or relevancy. They wanted the entire site to give everybody a bigger picture and idea. They wanted to do this together with Bally's, but the problem is the Bally's side wasn't ready yet. Well, Bally's has since said that they're kind of waiting on final designs by the A's to figure out what they're going to do. Anyway, the release date still seems very much uncertain. And maybe we're waiting until Bally's next quarterly earnings call, which should come later this month in a couple weeks. You'd have to think they'll be asked and pressed about that. Like, when will they be having renderings come out as part of what the A's are trying to do? Here's 5 things to pay attention to whenever the renderings ultimately do come out. Number 1, is the stadium actually proportionate to 9 acres? Now, that's the prior rendering, which I'm only showing you here not for a sense of accuracy, but actually inaccuracy, because the previous renderings, if you kind of scale it out, used somewhere between 18 and 20 total acres of the 35 acres on the site. Fact remains, they only have 9 acres allotted to their stadium project. And so the question is, when the new renderings come out, will the size be minimized or actually reflected? Now, it is true that the ballpark is still planned for that southeast corner of the site. It doesn't necessarily touch the strip directly. That is accurate here, but a common feeling is that a lot of people might feel different about this entire project and the design when they actually see it to scale, as opposed to what was seen here mid last year between May and June with the Nevada legislative session. This looked a lot more grand and a lot more inflated than what the size and scale of the project actually are going to be. Okay, second thing to pay attention to here, what does Bally's come up with? Like, what's actually on the rest of the Tropicana site? This also is not an official rendering. This is something that was floated out, to be clear. Last summer, it was passed around, and it includes towers that are probably way bigger than Bally's is going to build with a new Tropicana hotel. But the point remains that something on that site, on the west and probably north edges of the site, is going to be built up as part of this new Tropicana hotel, which they say is going to be sports branded, and they also say it's going to carry the Bally's name. So Tropicana no more, at least from what we understand right now. Hotel and casino spaces, to some degree, are guaranteed, whether they'll be high-rise or spread out or tiered or whatever. But the north and west edges of the property will have buildup, as opposed to what we saw in those prior renderings, which the A's already deemed inaccurate. As of July, they said, wad these up. This is not what the project is going to look like. But we do understand that however the project unfolds, there will be something for Bally's and GLPI on the other 26 acres of the site. And it's going to have to be pretty dense, right? All of a sudden, they're giving up 9 acres of the property. they still want to build something tremendous here too. I would imagine of the $1.5 to $2 to $2.5 billion range, they want to build a property that would match what the stadium is going to bring in. So they have to condense a lot of what they're trying to do, maybe build up higher than out farther like they had with the Tropicana before. But what's on the rest of the site is also going to be important. It also spells out a timeline of when might all of this actually be done. Like if the ballpark can be done by 2028, what about the rest of the site and project? And will that affect any kind of opening of the ballpark also on the site? Does the roof open and close? Is it retractable or is it fixed? Because all the talk about this potential ballpark project was a retractable roof through its inception, through its pitch to the Nevada State Legislature, a retractable roof ballpark that seated 30,000 and then 33,000. But talk lately and reporting from the San Francisco Chronicle would suggest that all the renderings that have been out there but not public show a stadium that has a fixed dome roof. It does not open. It does not shut. Well, it stays shut. I should say that. But a retractable roof would be a lot more complicated and in reality doesn't make sense. It was promised, and that's kind of the last note here. It was promised as part of this deal, this package, this $380 million of public money. It was promised as what would actually happen. But it also feels like as time goes on and reality sets in, it's not going to happen. The retractable roof could add as much as $500 million to the cost of the project. So if you could instantly remove $500 million, the construction, the design, the fabrication, you can't simply go to the store and get a retractable roof. It has to be designed specially and built and take extra time to put together. But the A's are also very mindful of their budget. And that's why they did the hiring of the construction side before the design side. They wanted to make sure that they could build something that was within the budget. And to use their words here, they wanted to have a wow factor with this stadium within the budget. And if the budget really is a concern and a retractable roof can take away, a lot of money, $500 million, then it's interesting to see what the roof structure actually is and isn't when it comes out. Do they show a 75% concept design? This is the number 4 thing to look at here. And by that, I mean a level of accuracy and detail in these renderings that all of a sudden give you an idea of total cost and buildability. Now, none of us can actually look at a drawing and say, well, that's exactly a $1.62 billion facility. We don't know that. But I think we can all understand, oh, that's a $1 billion building or that's a $2 billion building. You can tell by the nature of the design how exquisite it is, how adventurous it is. But also we're looking for the level, like I said, of accuracy and detail here in the 75% concept design. For example, this is what came out back in May. Look at that, was it 1, 2, 3, 4th deck up there? Are those rows like 200 seats wide? I mean, there's only 33,000 seats in the stadium, and there's only like 5 upper deck sections in total, basically. So obviously that's not it. It's also not clear about lighting structures, and the dugouts are all in the wrong spot. I don't think there were bullpens here. My point being, it's going to give you a much better idea of how accurate these drawings are, how buildable this place is. Can you actually pull this off on 9 acres, and can you actually make it happen for 1.5 or a little bit over $1 billion? It also would lead you to believe that if they can come up with the 75% concept design, it's at the point where plans and blueprints are not far away after that. Like this is the ramp in to actually coming up with what you'll need to maybe break ground as soon as April of 2025. And the last thing here is something that most people haven't even talked about yet, but is actually so crucial and critical to the success of this stadium when the A's would not be playing there. What is the geometry of the stadium? And by the way, I go back to these initial renderings that the A's put out that are inaccurate, obviously. Is that the field shape of the Coliseum, all that foul ground? Did somebody really Photoshop an old Coliseum photo and use that as the template for a rendering of a new Las Vegas ballpark? That would be the last thing I would start with. But you obviously need this facility to host so much more than baseball, because the A's would need to sell out every single game for 30 straight years to meet the property and tax production requirements to pay back the bonds in Clark County. So to pay those bonds back, you need, 2.6 million fans per season through 80-plus home dates. Well, another way to create more fans and revenue and opportunity is to have more events at this stadium when it's not being used. The problem is baseball, and I don't mean by the Coliseum playing surface, baseball generally has a field with a very unique shape of a playing surface. It's not necessarily conducive to concerts or soccer matches or other sporting or non-sporting events. But does the shape of this baseball stadium actually benefit concerts and other events as part of its design? In a way, like the A's have never really had, in modern times, their own ballpark that's only for baseball. They've always been part, in Oakland, and obviously in potentially Las Vegas, they've always had this multi-purpose facility that they had to share. And in this sense, no, you're not necessarily building it for football. You're not necessarily building it for pro rodeo, but it also needs to have favorable geometry so that you can do those things there, and they will be appealing to other entities to want to come in and rent and use the facility. So what is the actual geometry of the renderings? Seems like a small thing, seems like a fine detail or something most people will pass right over, but this is important to the success of the venue and dates and making sure that they have enough fans come in and they generate enough tax revenue to pay back the bonds from Clark County and make the project successful. So that's 5 things to look for ultimately when the renderings do come out. I realize this is so highly anticipated, and again, it's just because of the waiting game. If something was a lot more accurate a long time ago, we wouldn't be here now, but this is kind of where we're at. You've made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. And if you're just stopping by, you're seeing me in this channel for the very first time, hey, that's great. Welcome. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe so I can definitely see you back here next time.